Close-up of a chocolate strawberry cake, the candles hiss and sag. Wax tears dripping onto perfect icing. On my daughter's 45th birthday, she asked for one gift. She asked for my death. A front door clicks open. A grown woman glances, annoyed. Best gift, disappear. Before I tell you how I vanished and why Switzerland saved my life, you need to know what it costs to love somebody more than you love yourself. I stood with the cake balanced on my palms like an offering. The bakery box was white, tied with red twine, the way they tied it when Rebecca was little, and the scent alone could turn her into a skipping, clapping child. The box cost $200. The memories were priceless, and suddenly useless. The door swung open. She didn't look at me so much as past me. Oh, it's you. It was how people greet a bill collector, not a mother. Happy birthday, my love. My voice did that thing old voices do, trying to be light while carrying a weight. Your favorite dark chocolate with strawberries. Like when you were 8, remember? The year you wanted 12 candles and one to grow on. She stepped aside without a thank you. The house smelled like vanilla diffuser and new money, eucalyptus stems, quartz coasters, the kind of rug whose price tag could shame a pension. I'd helped by this smell. $50,000 for the wedding, $150,000 for the down payment, 8 months of mortgage. When David lost his job, between love and arithmetic, love always won, until it didn't. We sat, the cake pulled wax. I kept smiling, as if the expression could glue us together. Mom, we need to talk, she said. I nodded too fast. A trip, earrings, you mentioned that car. She cut me open with her eyes. The best gift would be if you just died. The sentence was clean. No tremor, no apology, chasing it down the hallway. I felt for a chair, even though I was already in one. What? It came out like a moth beating at a bulb. You heard me. I need space, freedom. You're suffocating me with your constant presence. The word presence felt like a crime. I tried to hand her the past like a receipt. I'm your mother, I said softly. I gave you exactly, she snapped, rising. That's the problem. Everything you do is so you can feel needed, so you can control. The candles were done pretending to be flames. They were puddles with wicks. I rose on shaking knees and carried my gift back to the threshold like contraband. Happy birthday, Rebecca, I said, because I did not trust any other sentence to remain civil in my mouth. Her expression barely changed. Impatience, then the small relief of a door closing. The ledger, I live in a place that is easy to clean and hard to brag about. The cake went into the trash, candles and all. It landed face down, an accidental mercy. Wax-kissed plastic. I sat on the old sofa, the one that had creaked under her fevers and prom fittings, and pulled out the boxes that housed the life I had subsidized. Folders with rubber bands, notes scribbled in the margins, bank slips, receipts with faded ink like ghost signatures. I sorted the stacks. Childhood and emergencies. Antibiotics when insurance shrugged, $1,200. Prom dress, PINK, impossible, $800. College shuffles, 3 major changes, for years stretched thin, $42,000. Wedding, ballroom, orchids that stained like wine, $35,000. Down payment, $150,000. Mortgage rescued during the layoff year, $16,000. Braces for twins, $4,000. Gifts, holidays, small kindnesses nobody itemizes, $10,000. Conservative, a subtotal of sacrifice, $258,000 on paper, $460,000 plus in reality. When you count the quiet things money covers, without a line item, tanks of gas, casseroles, field trip fees, slipped into little hands, sudden shoes. If I had put it into a bland account and let time do the compounding, if today it would be more than $600,000. But love is not an index fund. It is the kind of asset that pays in photographs and phone calls. Until it DOESN single quotes T. At 3 in the morning, the numbers blurred into the sentence, you should die. Something inside me changed shape. Grief began to stand up straight. The call by dawn, the math couldn't contain me. I needed a human voice to contradict last night's sentence. I called. She answered on the 5th ring, sighing as if I were a persistent advertisement. What do you want, Mom? I asked her to repeat herself. She obliged. She dressed cruelty as boundary and called my love obsession. She asked for space, the kind you give to the dead. When I hung up, something clicked like a lock thrown on from the inside. The ache cooled. The mind clears quickly when dignity arrives. The removals, MONTG, 3 offices in one day, bank joint account. The manager knew my name and the sound my patients made. Good morning, Mrs. Johnson. How can we help? Closed the joint account ending in 891, I said. Transfer the entire balance to my personal account. He blinked at the number. Are you sure? I am. On the screen, $20,000 marched home. Not a fortune, but a flag planted. Mortgage lender paper rights. As a cosigner, the loan officer explained, flipping to highlighted lines, you're liable when they can't pay, but you also have rights to protect the collateral if default is likely or repeated. 8 months. Last year, I reminded her. I carried their roof. She nodded. That's material. If arrears recur, you can initiate protective action. I'll left with copies. You don't forget you have rights unless someone helps you. Law office. The will. My husband's friend, Anel, is 70 wise in the places that ache when families disappoint. What changed? He asked gently. Everything, I said. I want to rewrite my will, life insurance beneficiaries, all of it. We spent 2 hours folding up old promises and replacing them with clean ones. Orphans Foundation as beneficiary, a trust for the twins that Rebecca cannot touch until they're 25, powers of attorney updated, a letter of instruction that refers to this week as the week I chose my own life. It felt less like revenge and more like surgery. You remove what's poisoned to keep the rest alive. When we finished, Anel looked at me over his glasses. Is there anything else you want to protect? Yes, I said. My piece. The neighbor Elvira from next door has laugh lines and a spine made of piano wire. We drink coffee that makes my hands steady. I told her everything. She put her palm over mine and squeezed like we were crossing a street together. I'll help, she said. What's the plan? It came out before I could question its theater. She wants me gone. Then, I will be gone. Not underground under sky. I'm going to live somewhere she doesn't think I can, and I need someone to discover the letter I'll leave, someone to deliver it. Elvira smiled. I taught drama for 30 years. We set the stage, my spare keys in her hand, a timeline wherein she'd worry, enter, and find the letter. The documentation, bank confirmations, beneficiary changes, notice I arranged in a neat stack beneath a cover note. Per your request, I will no longer be in your life. Here is what that really means. The lettering. Kitchen table night, I wrote with the calm of a surgeon, the patience of a nurse on a double shift. 23 pages. Carefully numbered, no rage, no just facts, wearing full sentences. Dear Rebecca, you asked me to disappear. I am granting your request. If love was a ledger, you would not owe me. This is not a bill, but love that has been misnamed as obligation must be returned to its rightful owner, or it will bankrupt us both. Here is what I paid so that you could stand where you stand. Here is what you will pay now that I have stepped away. I listed the sums, each with footnotes. $150,000 down payment, $16,000 mortgage rescue, all the rest. Attached, confirmation that the joint account is closed, the beneficiaries updated, the trust established for the twins, notices of health insurance cancellation, where I had been the secret payer of last resort. The final paragraph, your life will, as you wished, be much easier without mesia of my phone calls, my presence, my casserole. It will also be more expensive. Consider this neither a punishment nor a pardon. Consider it a mirror. I sealed it with my initials. I left it where it could not be missed. The Tikete Quiet Rebellion needs logistics. I had seen an ad months ago for a retirement relocation program, a whisper that asked, why not now? I called. Good evening. This is Global Seasons Agency, a bright voice said. How may I help? I saw your program for seniors abroad, I said. Tell me about Switzerland. Within an hour I had an itinerary, a flight to Zurich on Tuesday, a 1-month furnished rental with a view of the lake, an appointment with a financial advisor who could translate my accounts into a new life. The initial package fee was $5,000. I paid without the old reflex to convert every indulgence into my daughter's needs. I withdrew $30,000 in cash, not because I distrust banks, but because money you can hold is a kind of courage you can pocket. It went into my small safe, the envelope soft as a promise. Rebecca texted Friday night. Can you watch the twins? We have a dinner. I replied, I can't. She called. What does that mean? You can't. It means I have plans. What plans could you possibly have? She asked, and in her tone was every year she learned I would abandon myself to not disappoint her. Plans that are not your business, I said. As you said you want your life, I am arranging mine. X department hallway pre-dawn Monday. At 5 a.m., Elvira knocked, dressed like an accomplice from a heist film. Which in a way, this was, not the theft of money but the retrieval of self, ready for your great escape. She grinned. I handed her the spare keys and the envelope for Rebecca. We hugged longer than most people hug in hallways. She smelled like soap and theater dust. The cab driver lifted my 2 suitcases. Surprised how heavy a life can be when it fits into rectangles. I turned the lock one last time and felt nothing. Tia. To the airport, he asked. To myself, I wanted to answer. Yes, I said instead. Centerports are factories that manufacture distance. I sat at the gate with a paperback I didn't open, and watched other lives begin and end in arrivals' hugs. My phone lit up with calls I didn't take. The last text from Rebecca before boarding read, "You're being ridiculous. Call me. The kids are asking." The kids always ask when adults put them between a need and a boundary. Over the Atlantic, the cabin lights dimmed. I slept without dreams and woke with Europe beneath us like folded linen. Ext. Zurich, night. The sign said Mrs. Johnson in neat black letters. The young man holding it had a smile, not yet taught to be suspicious. "Welcome to Switzerland," he said. "I am Klaus." The apartment was small, white, and kind. A window framed the lake like a painting that moved. On the table, a binder, bank information, language classes, social groups, a map with red circles. Klaus explained the first steps with the efficiency the Swiss teach their children. I slept a sleep that did not set an alarm for anybody else's crisis. The callback day 3 lake bench, late afternoon. By then, Elvira would have discovered the empty apartment, the letter, the rerouting of money. I had eaten a croissant so perfect it made me sentimental. The water lapped with the patience of a metronome. My phone rang. Rebecca's name pulsed. I let it ring once, twice, a third time. On the 4th, I answered. "Where are you?" She sobbed without greeting. "What is this?" "Elvira showed me. She says you're gone. You can't just leave. You told me the best gift would be for me to die," I said. "This is the closest thing I could give you, that lets me keep breathing." I was angry. "You were honest," I said. Anger strips the sentence to its bones. "What do you want?" "Money." "Do you want me to apologize?" "I don't want anything," I said. And for the first time in my life, it was true. "I want you to experience what you asked for. Life without me." She went quiet, then strategic. "The bank called. You closed the account. The insurance, Mom. Be reasonable. We'll lose the house. Then you will learn the price of a sentence," I said, not unkindly. "Tell the twins their grandmother loves them. That is a sentence I will always pay for." I hung up before she could bargain with tears. The phone rang again and again. I turned it off and let the lake keep time. New meth, calf by the lake evening. I ate salmon with caviar for $80 and felt no guilt. I bought a silk scarf for $100 and wrapped it around a throat that had learned to speak in full truths. The next morning, a man named Herr Meyer outlined the numbers that now belonged to me. Pension transfers, residency options, conservative investments with predictable return curves. My favorite curve was the one in the mirror, my mouth learning how to rest. "You can live here comfortably, Mrs. Johnson," he said. "We have many clients who arrive with families." "Complicated, you mean? Mothers who confused love with erasure," I said. He nodded. "We help them keep what they have left." When I stepped back into the afternoon, I watched a grandmother teaching a child to skip stones, for tries. Then the stone kissed the surface twice before disappearing. The child squealed. The woman laughed, a laugh that didn't apologize for taking up the air it used. Documentary. Interlude LWR 3rd, Julieta Wache NSA o N-72. Nurse, retired people, ask. When it turned, it didn't. It accumulated. Love didn't fail. My boundaries did. When you never bill for yourself, the debt becomes due all at once. Cutaway. Receipts spread like a card trick. Cake upside down in the bin. Pens signing a new beneficiary line. I am not a martyr. I am not a villain. I am a woman who bought a lot of birthdays she was never invited to. Fallout begins on the 4th day. I turned my phone on for 1 hour. 47 missed calls. 23 texts. The progression was instructive. "Please answer, we're worried. We called the police." They can't intervene when an adult leaves a note. "The bank wants a meeting. You'll ruin you see. Didn't mean it to." Dee replied once. "I am safe. Do not look for me." The reply came in under 5 minutes. "You're going to destroy this family," which is what people say when the person who held everything together puts down her hands. I went for a walk through quiet streets that did not know me. In a shop window, a watercolor class poster, Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I wrote the times in my notebook. A new Rhythmmontage first week in Zurich, German class, painting class, a hike with the seniors group where the air smells like bread. A woman named Ingrid tells me she moved here when her children learned to dial only when money was missing. We exchange stories the way veterans exchange scars. The first months, she says, I felt like a bad mother. And now I feel like a good woman. We smile the smile of people who remember living differently. At night, I read, I write. I learn to cook for one, as if one is an honored guest. I buy flowers for myself and put them where the morning can find them. The frame you could call what I did revenge. But revenge asks the other person to notice. Mine was something quieter. The retrieval of my name from everyone who had spent it, without my consent. If you're watching this thinking of a sentence you said in anger, call your mother. If you're watching this and you are the mother, go find your passport. The story will move through family courts and consulates, through email and public apology, through foreclosure notices and bestseller lists, and a lake that keeps its promises. But stories do not sprint, they walk steady. This is where it starts walking. The knock you can't hear, a door, immaculate white, mounted with a brass peephole. The camera wants the knock, but there is none. Some knocks don't come with fists, they arrive as emails, case numbers, and allegations. A phone lighting on a cafe table beside a porcelain cup. Int. Lakeside Caf, Zurich, late morning. Foam collapses, slow as snowfall, at the rim of my cappuccino. The screen shows an American number stamped with urgency. I answer, and a voice trained in neutrality introduces herself. Mrs. Johnson, this is Sarah Williams with Family Services. We've received a complaint regarding your well-being. I watch a swan carve the lake into silk. From whom? I ask, though the answer is a name that has lived in my throat for 45 years. Your daughter, Rebecca, the voice says carefully. She alleges possible cognitive impairment, impulsive financial decisions, potential exploitation. We'd like to verify you are safe and capacitated. Would you be willing to prove I am sane? I finish kindly. Certainly, I have spent a lifetime proving softer things. Mental competence is simple. We arrange an assessment through the consulate. I end the call and hold my cup with both hands the way you cradle something fragile. Body heat, traveling into porcelain, returning as calm. When love fails, it recruits bureaucracy. When dignity arrives, it signs where it must and keeps walking. Into law office video call window split screen. Anal's face is pixelated wisdom, a bookshelf marching behind him like a regiment of spines. He has the tone of a man who knows too much about families and still chooses gentleness. She's retained counsel, he says, removing glasses. They've filed intent to challenge the will changes on grounds of diminished capacity. I allow myself a small smile. We anticipated that. We did, he agrees, sliding a folder into frame, and we documented everything. Dates, audio of our conversations, your itinerary, your letters, clear as a bell. Courts like bells, they cut through fog. What else? I ask. She attempted to access your accounts. He says, the banks flagged it and called us. Also, she's trying to halt your cosigner protective actions. I've filed notices to proceed. Good, I say, because truth is a relief when it has paperwork. Anel leans closer. Ulit, there is a line you drew. I need to know if you intend to hold it when the weather turns. I intend to live on my side of it, I answer. He nods once, a soldier saluting a boundary. The American consulate, Zurich afternoon. Rooms that smell faintly of toner and old carpets. A flag in the corner. A doctor with soft eyebrows and a pen that glides. 3 hours that are not tests so much as conversations, orientation, memory, executive function, judgment. The scaffolding that holds a life upright. Spell world backward, he asks. DL Road W. I say, then add, and the world itself backward is a place where mothers outlive their usefulness before their love does. He smiles into his clipboard. Humor is data, he says. So is insight. We walk through timelines and signatures. I recount the week of removals, with the precision of a nurse charting vitals, dates, amounts, agencies, outcomes. No tremor in my voice, no crusade, just the quiet math of a woman who brought receipts to a life that refused them. At the end he caps his pen. Mrs. Johnson, he says in the registered doctors save for good news, you are lucid, informed, and intentional. I will say so, officially. There are diagnoses that heal, competent, capable, clear. The lakes answer, Lak Zurich dusk, the lake answers, in light. A child throws a stone that skips twice and sinks. Their grandmother claps like an orchestra. My phone hums with a text. The case is closed. W. Bureaucracy, for once, has the decency to be brief. Another text. Immediate, like a hand behind it. How could you? R. No greeting. No punctuation aside from knife marks. I slipped the phone back into my bag. The swan is It knows the difference between weather and climate. A lesson in missing. Small apartment, Zurich night. I turn on the lamp that lends every book a halo. The messages spool in worry, rage, bargaining, threat, pleading. The cycle is familiar to anyone who has said no to a person who considers them a function. We called the police. They say you left a letter. This is so childish. The kids are asking for you. Congratulations, you've ruined your family. Mom, please, I didn't mean it. I was stressed. I type once. Stress does not invent sentences. It removes their disguises. I do not press send. Not everything wise wants to be read by the person who taught you its opposite. Instead, I compose something else, a list titled, What I Miss About Being Needed. Beneath it, the page stays empty. I flip it and start again. What I love about being free. The ink fills fast. Sleeping without an alarm that isn't mine. Walking until the map stops. Speaking. Choosing food that pleases, not impresses. Money that asks only, what do you want? Silence that heals. I sleep with the notebook open like a passport drawing. Montage. Practicalities of disappearing without dying. Banks. New alerts. Multi-factor authentication. Geographical locks. Communications. New EU number. Old number on a cheap handset turned off in a drawer. In case police ever need the story tidy. Forwarding. A P.O. box arranged through the agency. Elvera authorized for anything stubbornly analog. Healthcare. Swiss registration. Clinic intake. Medication transfer if needed. It isn't yet. The Swiss Air is a prescription residency. Herrmeyer orchestrating documents like a conductor proof of income, housing contract, insurance, a background check I pass by virtue of having been a nurse, which is a kind of lifelong clearance. When you take your life back, the first shape it takes is a checklist, then a calendar, finally, a face in the mirror that doesn't flinch. Ingrid's trailhead above Zurich, morning. The seniors hiking group is 10 women and 3 men, all with knees that negotiate but do not protest. Ingrid silver bob, lemon scarf walks beside me. We share the cadence of women who have told their stories out loud, enough times that shame evacuated the premises. My children called me selfish, she says, stepping over a route. Mine called me an obstacle, I say, and the word crumbles to soil under our boots. Ingrid laughs softly. I wrote a rule for myself. I only help on Tuesdays and never with money I would miss. What happens when they call on Wednesday? I ask. I don't answer, she says. They learned the calendar. They learned my value by bumping into it. We crest a small hill. The lake below is a silver plate with cities arranged like fruit. Write your rule, she says. Make it short enough for a refrigerator magnet, then live by it like a prayer. That night, I write, I am not a wallet with Wi-Fi. I am a woman with a life. It is too long for a magnet. It is perfect for a mirror, the interviewee in cozy studio weekend. String lights, a fern, a host who speaks to me with the warmth of someone who has sat in adjacent fires. The channel highlights older women's We talk about boundaries with our hands, which is the only way some truths travel. What would you tell a mother who is where you were a month ago? She asks. Take one action that proves to you you exist outside your child's needs, I say. A passport application, a class enrollment, a haircut you don't ask permission to wear. Then take another. Will you go back? She asks, in the way viewers want a bow tied. Home is where I am treated like a person, I say, so I've already gone back. The video posts, comments are a choir, grief, relief, rage, confessions, 1,000 women learning the word enough in their own mouths. I close my laptop and cry, not for Rebecca, not primarily but for the girl I was when saying no felt like treason. The legal weather shifts. Law office, phone call, Monday, Anel, again, the sound of papers sliding. 2 updates, he says. First, Family Services closed the case with a note that allegations were unfounded. Second, we've moved from intent to challenge to a filed petition. Court date set for 6 weeks. On what basis now? I ask. The old chestnut. Undue influence by third parties, he says. Your neighbor. The travel agency, me. He chuckles without humor. They'll say we manipulated you. Good, I say. We'll introduce the judge to the manipulations that predated all of you by decades. There's also movement on the mortgage. He adds, your protective action is valid. Their payment record since your departure is spotty. If arrears cross 60 days again, the bank proceeds. I picture the house, the quartz coasters, the diffuser like a fantasy forest, perched, not on a foundation but on the back of habit. I do not feel triumph. I feel a kind of architectural honesty. Buildings should not float on mothers. David X. Ty Cobblestone Lane, Zurich, late afternoon. An email pings while I stand outside a bakery, negotiating with myself about butter. It's from David. The subject line is, Bear, I'm sorry. The body is longer than I expect, and emptier than it wants to be. He saw the interview. He admits complicitous silence is complicity's favorite costume. He says, the twins miss me. He says Rebecca is unraveling. He asks, nothing concrete, only breathes contrition into a keyboard. I draft a reply with the same steadiness as my bank exercises. David, I hope you become the kind of father who teaches the twins that love pays attention before it pays bills. I cannot step back into the role that cost me myself. Be well. I send it. It does not bounce back. Not all boundaries have barbed wire. Some are glass visible, clean, unbleeding. The money. That's Hermeyer's office midweek. Charts that move modestly upward. Words like conservative, stable, index, the antithesis of love's volatile market. With your current allocations, he says, tapping a printout, you can withdraw X each month and still see growth. The Swiss like their numbers neat. You will, too. Do you ever tell clients to buy champagne? I ask. He smiles. I tell them to live a number that feels like respect. For some, that is champagne. For others, new walking shoes. Both, I say. Please. We open a local account and a little something called a third pillar, a retirement instrument named like a sanctuary. I like the architecture of it. A first pillar of state, a second of occupation, a third of self. I had built pillars for everyone else's roofs. This one had my name carved into the stone. The visit that didn't happen. Zurich apartment night. The doorbell rings and my chest tightens in an old way. Ghosts. But when I open, it's only Klaus, dropping off a folder I'd left at the office. He notices my hand, the tremor of a history trying to reclaim present tense. You are safe here. Mrs. Johnson, he says, not as a platitude but as a fact a nation can enforce. If anyone were to cause problems, we have processes. I am learning to live with doors that open only on purpose, I say. He doesn't understand the metaphor. He doesn't need to. When I close the door, I slide the new deadbolt with a click that sounds like a vow. Social alchemy MONTG, a life that adds, not subtracts. Watercolor class, a bowl of pears that looks like moons. German, Entschuldigung, refuses to live in my mouth. Danke, moves in happily. Book club, a debate over Ferrante, that turns into a debate over forgiveness, that turns into recipes. Music in a square, an accordion that insists the world can be folded and unfolded without tearing. Happiness in old age is not spectacle. It is the accumulation of small competences and the retirement of impossible jobs. The counterpunch of PARTA afternoon. The phone call from Family Services. Ms. Williams is warm this time, a human voice without a file in its hand. I wanted you to know, she says, that we've documented the complaint as unfounded. It will help if there are future concerns. Thank you, I say. Do many mothers call you from other countries? Fewer than should, she admits, but more every year. Does it get easier? I ask. She thinks, it gets clearer. After we hang up, I draft a letter I have been avoiding, not to Rebecca but to a past version of me. You are not cruel for noticing what hurts. You are responsible for the remedy. I place it in my notebook under the magnet-prayer. The letter that left DX, postbox sunlit morning. I send an essay to an online journal. I title it, When a Mother's Love is Alone Without a Term Sheet. The editor replies within 2 days, stunned and hungry. Our readers need this, she writes. Will you do a video? I already did, I think, but say yes. The piece runs, the comments bloom again. Women, men, adult children learning to apologize without asking for access to the person they hurt. Among them, a girl of 30 admits she has treated her mother like a rental car. She promises to return her with gas in the tank. The metaphor is imperfect, The intention is diamond. I cry again, which is becoming a hobby that costs nothing and returns interest. Rebecca's weather tea messages over shots of Zurich, Limmat River, sun on water. I know you're reading this. Please answer. Market stall. Berries like jewels. Mom, they said we could lose the house if late again. We need to talk. Tram. Glass reflections of an old woman smiling at her own shape. You're being dramatic. You made your point. Come home. Bridgeview. The city. A diorama of order. Fine. Do whatever. Don't expect to meet your grandkids again. I put the phone down as if it is hot. I breathe. I make tea. I whisper to the empty room what I needed someone to whisper to me years ago. Cruelty written in panic is still cruelty. The ink doesn't change the sentence. I block the number. I do not block the memory. I keep it like a scar I have learned to moisturize. The foreclosure clock. A Papchoni 2 weeks later. 45 days. Anel says, that's where we're at. The bank is un sentimental. Good, I say, and the word surprises me with its lack of venom. Houses want grown-ups. Prepare for outreach, he warns. Not just from Rebecca, her friends, perhaps extended family. When money leaks, people look for the faucet. I have already turned the water off, I say, and glance at my Swiss tap. I drink a glass just to celebrate metaphors that line up. Ulita, he adds, softer. You are doing this without malice. Court's notice. I'm doing it with mercy, I answer. For everyone, eventually. Eventually is not a date, he says, but he understands. The Mira Testianti, apartment evening, homework from watercolor, self-portrait loose. The instructions say, do not chase likeness, chase presence. I paint what the lake has done to my posture, what the deadbolt has done to my breath, what the checklist has done to my fear. It looks nothing like me until it does. I hang it opposite the bed. It guards my sleep better than any Saint. Documentary interlude. Black background, white text, each appearing with a typewriter sound. Boundary, the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Guilt, the tax levied by those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Dignity, the receipt you show yourself after you do the hard thing. I spent decades being generous. Now I am practicing being fair. The cliff's edge. Balcony, overlooking city night. The city glitters like it knows its value. On the small table, a flute of champagne and a pair of walking shoes, newly purchased, both receipts tucked under the glass like coasters. My phone, on airplane mode, is a quiet stone. I knock at the door. For a moment, my heart rehearses old storms. I open to Klaus again, embarrassment already bubbling, but he is holding a thin envelope with the bank's seal forwarded through the agency as requested. I slide a finger under the flap. The letter is clinical and definitive. Notice of intent to foreclose if arrears are not remedied in 15 days. I hold the paper like it weighs more than paper, because it contains the physics lesson my family never took. Remove the load-bearing wall, and the house tells the truth. I set the document down, lift the glass, and say quietly to the night, may everyone learn what holds them up. The sound of Justice gavel echoes in slow motion, but we're not in a courtroom. Justice doesn't always come with judges. Sometimes it arrives in envelopes, in balances corrected, in houses learning gravity. A letter sliding under a door marked foreclosure notice. The return of the paper ghost. CURACH, apartment morning. The Swiss post is punctual even with heartbreak. The envelope on my table is thin, beige, precise, the opposite of drama. Inside, an official letter written in language that refuses sentiment. Notice of foreclosure on the property jointly held under mortgage reference #X. Due to sustained non-payment. Bank proceedings will begin in 15 days. I read it twice, then once more for the rhythm. Bureaucracy always has rhythm. Unsentimental justice that human hearts rarely achieve. I think of the marble floors I helped pay for, the candles that smelled of cedar, the kitchen island where I once iced a $200 cake no one wanted. Now the house is mathematics. And mathematics is fair. I email, Anel proceed. Panic calls from the past phone vibrating, unanswered. I let the ringtone play. It's elegy. Ring. Rebecca, Mom, what's happening? The bank called. They're saying something about a foreclosure notice. This has to be a mistake. Ring. David's voice this time. Ulita, please, we can fix this. Just tell them you don't want to reclaim it. The kids, think about the kids. They always remember the children when the walls start falling. I let the calls go unanswered. The phone stops vibrating. A new text appears. If you go through with this, you'll destroy your family. But I remember that families built on debt, guilt, and silence were already destroyed. This was just paperwork catching up. Conversations with Concinspio Cook Club evening. A dozen expatriates sit in a cafe surrounded by shelves. We've been reading the remains of the day, and the irony doesn't escape me. A man who sacrifices his life for duty, realizing too late that obedience isn't love. When it's my turn to speak, I say softly, I think the saddest part isn't that he served others, it's that he mistook servitude for virtue. Ingrid raises her glass of wine. Too, I'm learning duty. Everyone clinks glasses. The sound is fragile, brave. Annals update LAW office video call. Anel appears, spectacles halfway down his nose. Yulita, he begins. The court has rejected Rebecca's petition. Lack of evidence, lack of merit, lack of sanity. I chuckled. 3 lacks. That sounds like balance. She's furious, he adds. She accused the system of taking her mother away, said you were brainwashed. By what? I ask. By peace, apparently. I smile. If peace is brainwashing, I hope it's contagious. He leans closer. The bank also confirmed your cosigner rights are officially active. You will receive your share of the equity once the property is sold, possibly within the month. Thank you, Anel, I say quietly, for helping me close a story that began with open hands. Rebecca's breaking pointer BBCCA's living room night. Rebecca sits surrounded by cardboard boxes. Her children watch cartoons. David is silent. She holds the foreclosure letter, hands trembling. Do you understand what she's doing to us? Rebecca snaps. David exhales. Maybe she's doing what she should have done years ago. What is that supposed to mean? She's living for herself. Rebecca's anger curdles into disbelief. She can't do this to me. Maybe she already did it for you. David interrupts quietly. You just don't see it yet. People only call it betrayal when the lie stops working. The letter to Mother's Zoo, RISH apartment night. I sit with a cup of tea and my laptop, drafting an open letter to mothers like me, the ones who measure their worth by what they give away. To every woman who has ever mistaken exhaustion for love, you can stop now. They may call you selfish, cruel, ungrateful, dramatic, but you are simply alive. The world taught you to pour yourself into others until empty. Pour yourself back in. Watch how quickly life blooms again. When I finish, I post it under a pseudonym, a mother who chose herself. By morning, it has 12,000 shares. The unexpected visitor. Zurich Street Day. A figure waits outside my apartment building. I recognize the posture before I recognize the face. David. He's thinner, older, softer around the eyes. Ulita, he says, voice cracking. Please, hear me out. I hesitate but open the door. We walk to a nearby cafe. I came on my own, he assures me. Rebecca doesn't know. She's lost right now. The kids ask for you. Did you tell them the truth? I ask. I told them, you're living somewhere beautiful, because sometimes love needs distance. He looks down at his hands. I failed you too. I let her treat you like an endless well. You both drank, I say, gently. You were thirsty too. He nods, ashamed. She's starting therapy. Maybe it's too late, but it's never too late to become honest, I say. It's just too late for me to be your safety net. He smiles sadly. That's fair. When he leaves, I realize forgiveness doesn't always require proximity. Sometimes it's just the freedom to speak without hate. The article on a Linnaeus Journal studio interview setting. A journalist from a major European outlet invites me for a segment on elder empowerment. I agree reluctantly. She asks, if your daughter were watching right now, what would you say to her? I look directly into the lens. I'd say, you asked me to die. Instead, I lived. And that's the gift neither of us expected. The interviewer blinks, moved. That's powerful. No, I correct her softly. That's peace. The clip goes viral. My inbox floods with letters from women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, some whispering gratitude, others screaming recognition. A few men write too, sons apologizing for the mothers they never saw, as people. Switzerland in Bloemenmoentie spring. Tulips in rows, Swiss flags fluttering. My watercolor class paints the same park from different angles. Ingrid and I laugh as she spills ochre across her paper. Art, she says, is just forgiveness with colors. I think of Rebecca. Of all the versions of her, the little girl in pink tulle, the woman with impatience in her voice, the stranger filing legal papers against her own mother. I breathe. Then, I'm painting forgiveness every day. The official transfer by NK office day. A teller hands me a printed statement. Transfer. $185,000. my recovered equity, my lost years, rewritten in numbers. Would you like to reinvest or withdraw? She asks. Both, I reply. Half for tomorrow, half for today. That afternoon I buy a small cottage in the Bernese countryside, a place with wooden shutters and a view of green, so vast it could swallow regret. I name it Casa Libera. The email from Rebecca Ciotage night. The glow of the screen feels colder than usual. Subject: I finally understand. Her message is long, part confession, part collapse. She writes about therapy, about realizing she used me as a shield against her own fears. She writes that losing the house taught her humility, that she's found a job, that the twins are thriving. I don't deserve forgiveness, she writes, but I want you to know, I finally see you as a person, not just as my mother. Thank you for disappearing. It saved both of us. I stare at the screen for a long time, hands unmoving. Then I reply, I am glad you are learning. I wish you peace, not punishment. My love is quiet now. It doesn't demand return. Take care of it, even from afar. Then I archive the thread, not delete, not reply again. Archive, the digital equivalent of closure. The Festival of Light. Zurich Lake evening. Lanterns float on the water, hundreds of small suns drifting toward the horizon. I light one for my younger self, one for my mother, and one for Rebecca. Not forgiveness, not mourning, just acknowledgement. Ingrid nudges me. For whom is the third one? For a girl who thought love meant obedience, I whisper. May she rest. Some funerals are for people who are still alive. The twins' voice, COTTH day. A letter arrives in childish handwriting. It's from the twins. They write about school, about learning piano, about missing me. At the bottom, a sentence that undoes me. Mom says you live near mountains. We saw pictures. When we grow up, can we come see you? Tears drop like ink stains. I write back immediately. Yes, my darlings, when you are old enough to travel on your own, I'll be waiting by the lake with stories and hot chocolate. Remember, kindness is the only inheritance that never loses value. The book deal Publisher's office day. Brigitte, my editor, smiles behind rimless glasses. Yulita, your manuscript is more than memoir, it's survival literature. We'll call it When Love Hurts, Freedom After 70. I laugh softly. It's not glamorous. You know, healing looks like grocery lists and quiet breakfasts. Exactly, she says. That's why it matters. We shake hands. I sign the contract with a pen that doesn't tremble. Rebecca's consequences. Rebecca, a small apartment night. Rebecca sits at a modest dining table, bills stacked beside a half-eaten dinner. The twins are asleep. She scrolls through social media and pauses on a video. My daughter said the best gift was my death. It's my interview. Her eyes glisten as she watches me speak about freedom. When it ends, she whispers, I'm sorry. To an empty room. Her reflection in the black screen stares back, a woman who finally sees herself, perhaps for the first time. Book launch, Zurich, bookstore evening. The place smells of paper and candlelight. A small crowd gathers, mostly women, a few men, all carrying invisible wounds. I read the final paragraph aloud. To every mother who gave too much, you don't have to disappear to exist. But sometimes, disappearing is the only way to be seen. Applause, tears, laughter, the sound of people exhaling years of quiet pain. The mountains. Swiss Alps day. A train climbs into white silence. I sit by the window, scarf fluttering, heart light. Below, the lake glints like a mirror, reflecting a woman I once was and the one I've become. Rebecca asked me to die, so I did the part that begged, that bent, that lived through others. The rest of me learned to live. The camera pans wide. The train disappears into a tunnel. Some wishes, when granted, save everyone. The mirror of the world. Newspaper clippings, interview flashes, and translated headlines scroll across the screen in slow motion. American retiree becomes voice for forgotten mothers. Freedom after 70 sparks global conversation. When I left home, I disappeared. When I told the truth, the world found me. The ripples rips a size cottage morning. Sunlight spills through white curtains. My phone hums with notifications, emails, invitations, messages from strangers. My small story has become a storm. One reads, your courage gave me permission to stop apologizing for existing. Thank you. Another says, I'm 67. I just told my son I can't be his ATM anymore. It felt like jumping off a cliff and finding wings. I sit at my table and weep, not the heavy tears of loss, but the soft kind that wash what's left of fear. The internet can be cruel, but sometimes it becomes a choir. I wasn't alone anymore. I was a note in a harmony of women rediscovering their worth. The conference GNFA Convention Center Day. Months later, I stand backstage at an international conference on women's mental health. On the screen behind the curtain, keynote Ulita Johnson, author, nurse, advocate. Klaus, now my assistant and friend, whispers, "You're up next, Mrs. Johnson." The lights are blinding. I grip the podium, glance at the sea of faces, therapists, social workers, daughters, mothers. My voice doesn't shake. I was a nurse for 40 years. I begin, I thought I understood pain, but nothing hurts more than realizing your love has turned into someone else's convenience. Gasps, nods, silence. I'm not here to teach rebellion, I continue. I'm here to remind you, self-respect is not betrayal. Applause swells like a tide. For the first time in my life, I am being heard without having to scream silently. Rebecca's Discovery Arabics Assicier's apartment night. Rebecca sits cross-legged on her bed, laptop open, streaming my speech. The twins peek through the door. "Is that Grandma?" one asks softly. She nods, tears streaking her cheeks. "Yes, that's Grandma. She's helping people." Her son asks, "Will she help us too?" Rebecca swallows hard. She already is. Redemption doesn't announce itself. It whispers through those who finally start listening. The radio interview, Radio Studio, afternoon. The host leans toward the microphone. "Mrs. Johnson, people call you the grandmother of some. How do you feel about that title?" I laugh softly. Grandmothers mend things. Maybe I'm just mending what I broke by staying silent for too long. He smiles. "Have you spoken to your daughter since all this?" I pause. No, but I hear her through others. Every woman who writes, every daughter who reconsiders her mother's silence. "Do you miss her?" "Of course," I say, "but missing someone doesn't mean you belong where you were hurt." The awards URI's Opera House evening. Under golden chandeliers, they call my name for outstanding contribution to women's rights and senior empowerment. The Aurora Humanitarian Prize goes to Ulita Johnson. I walk to the stage, applause like thunder, cameras flash. For decades, my worth was measured in dollars spent. Tonight, it is measured in lives changed. I accept this for every woman who was told she was too much, too loud, too old, too emotional. Keep being all of it. The world will adjust. Rebecca writes against Teach Night. Another email. The subject, "I saw you on the news. Mom, I watched your speech. I can't stop crying." You're right. We mistake dependency for love. I'm learning to stand on my own. I hope one day I can tell you that in person. This time, I reply, "Rebecca, growth is not an apology, it's proof. Keep proving. I'm proud of the woman you're becoming, but I still need space, love from afar." Mom, I click send. No anger. No hate, just balance. The Healing Circle COMUNI Center Day. I host a weekly support circle, women of every accent, all carrying invisible weights. We sit in a ring of chairs, coffee cups in trembling hands. One whispers, "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 3 years." Another adds, "My son said I ruin his peace when I ask about him." I listen, nodding, letting them pour years of quiet pain into the open air. We cannot force gratitude, I tell them, but we can model it. The peace you give yourself becomes the lesson they didn't know they needed. We end every session by repeating one line, "I am not too late to love myself." The unexpected call. Age, afternoon. The phone rings with an American number. For a second, I almost ignore it. Then I answer, "Grandma." It's a young voice, a little deeper, older now. My heart races. "Is that?" "It's me, Lucas. I'm 13 now. Mom said I could call you if I wanted." I exhale a laugh and a sob at once. "And do you want to?" "Yes," he says shyly. "I wanted to tell you I read your book for school. My teacher said you're brave." My throat tightens. "Did you like it?" "I think I understand now why you left," he says. "And I'm proud of you." Tears stream down my cheeks. "Thank you, my sweet boy. That means more than all the applause in the world." The journey back. Airport Terminal Day. 2 years later, I step off a plane onto American soil, not for reconciliation, but for closure. The air smells of home and ghosts. David meets me outside customs. "They're waiting at the cafe," he says. I nod, clutching my small carry-on. I'm not sure what I'll say. He smiles. "Then, maybe say nothing. Just listen." The reunion cave day. Rebecca sits nervously at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a mug she hasn't sipped. The twins, taller now, look between us. When she sees me, she stands, uncertain. I walk slowly, every step a memory. She whispers, "Mom." I raise a hand gently. No apologies, just truth. She nods, eyes full. The truth is, I was cruel. I thought your love was controlled because I didn't know how to love myself. Losing you showed me that. I study her face, older, humbled, real. The woman I raised is finally here, I say softly. She breaks down. Can we start over? Not start, I say. Continue differently. We hug. Not tightly, not desperately, just enough. Peace by the lake. Zurich Lake evening. Months later, Rebecca and the twins visit Switzerland. They stand beside me, watching lanterns drift on the water. "Grandma," Lucas says, "did you really forgive Mom?" "Yes," I smile, because forgiveness isn't for her. It's for the space it leaves inside me, room for love again. Rebecca places her hand on mine. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you." I glance at her and say the line that changed everything. "I didn't stop loving you, Rebecca. I just stopped funding your mistakes." We laugh, and this time, it's not bitter. Epilogue, Resurrection a moment, TG 3 years later. The book becomes an international bestseller, translated into 15 languages. A foundation named Casa Libora opens across 3 countries, offering support for elderly parents recovering from emotional abuse. Rebecca volunteers once a week, counseling young mothers on boundaries. The twins, now teenagers, study in Switzerland for a summer exchange. They call me Aborata and me. I keep writing, not about pain now, but about joy, about the quiet rebirth of a woman who was supposed to vanish. When I disappeared, I thought I was ending something, but disappearing wasn't death, it was resurrection. Black background, white text fades in. One woman's boundary became a movement. When I spoke, I thought it was a whisper, meant for one daughter. I didn't realize it was a prayer meant for thousands of mothers. The documentary FILM Studio Day. A director from a Swiss-American production house adjusts his headset. Behind him, posters read, "Freedom after 70, the film, Yulita," he says, smiling. "Your book started a global conversation. We want the world to see it." Cameras, lights, makeup. I never imagined my wrinkles would become political. He asks, "What's the one thing you want the audience to take away?" I answer, that a woman's peace is not negotiable, not even for her children. The director stares, silent, then nods. That's our opening line. Montage, shooting interviews, visits to Casa Libre centers in Spain, Canada, Brazil, and Pakistan, women laughing, painting, learning languages, reclaiming dreams. When we heal one mother, we heal an entire generation in advance. The policy, Tabuya Nights Hall, afternoon, a round table of diplomats and advocates. The agenda, Elder Emotional Exploitation and Financial Abuse Prevention Act. A delegate gestures toward me. "Mrs. Johnson, your story catalyzed this draft. Would you like to speak?" I rise slowly. "This isn't about punishing children," I say. "It's about protecting parents from being erased. Abuse doesn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it leaves balance transfers and broken hearts." The room listens, pens pause, cameras record. Later, a journalist asks how it feels to shape law. I tell her, justice begins when someone stops apologizing for needing it. Rebecca's speech. COMU Unite Center, NIGHT. Rebecca stands on a small stage. A Casa Libera USA banner hangs behind her. "My mother's story used to make me defensive," she admits. "Now it makes me grateful. She taught me that love with boundaries lasts longer than love built on sacrifice." Applause. A woman in the audience wipes tears. Rebecca looks down, collecting herself. "I used to think I lost a mother, but I realize now, she found herself, and that gave me permission to do the same. I didn't raise her to worship me, I raised her to wake up." The foundation expands a Casa Libera billboard in Seoul. Healing has no age. A support group in Nairobi reading, translated passages from Freedom. After 70, a digital map with red dots spreading across continents. I thought I was escaping my daughter. I was preparing to meet the world. Klaus enters my office one morning. "We just hit 1 million members in the online community," he announces. "You've built a global family, one that doesn't drain you." I laugh. Finally, a family with boundaries. The twins visit Swiss countryside, summer day. Lucas and Emma, now 17, arrive with backpacks and glowing eyes. Rebecca follows, carrying a basket of apples, a truce disguised as fruit. We walk along a narrow path lined with sunflowers. The air smells of forgiveness. Grandma Emma says, Mom told us everything. We think you're kind of a superhero. I grin. Superheroes just survive long enough to tell the truth. Rebecca smiles faintly. You saved us, Mom. In the hardest way. I didn't save you, I reply. I stopped saving you so you could learn to swim. The film premieres URA cinema night. Spotlights, red carpet, reporters shouting names. The documentary Freedom After 70 premieres to a full house. As the credits roll, the audience rises. Applause fills the room. Rebecca stands, 2 tears streaking her cheeks. She reaches for my hand. We hold hands, not as mother and child, but as 2 women who survived each other. The silent interviewed Sua Monte, RYSET Day. The interviewer asks, Julita, what does legacy mean to you? I pause, then smile. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what finally stops leaving you empty. A letter to my younger self. COT Tage night. I sit by candlelight, writing, Dear Julita, you will spend half your life proving love. Then one day, you'll learn it doesn't need witnesses. You'll lose people who mistake your silence for surrender. Let them. You'll grow flowers from the ashes of obedience. You'll forgive yourself for mistaking suffering for purpose. And someday, a woman will read your name in a book and realize she's not crazy, she's just free. Love, the woman you became. Rebecca's visit to Casa Laboria Com. Muonite Garden. Afternoon. Rebecca kneels beside a group of elderly women planting herbs. A volunteer whispers, That's her, Julita's daughter. Rebecca smiles, unashamed. Yes, and I'm still learning from her. A woman beside her chuckles. We all are, dear. The greatest apology is living differently. Farewell, Lake Zurich, sunset. I walk slowly toward the bench where it all began, where I first turned off my phone, where silence became sanctuary. Rebecca joins me, placing a hand on my shoulder. It's beautiful here. It always was, I whisper. I just needed to stop waiting for permission to see it. She leans her head on my shoulder. The twins toss stones into the lake. Each splash feels like punctuation at the end of a long sentence finally finished. Some stories end with forgiveness. Others end with peace. Mine ends with both. Final montaje. En casa. Labora banners waving beside the UN flag. Women laughing in therapy groups across the world. Rebecca publishing her own memoir, Letters to My Mother Who Lived. A statue unveiled in Geneva. A woman standing tall, palms open. Inscription reading, To every mother who remembered herself. I was told the best gift I could give was my death. Instead, I gave the world my life. Cottage night. I close my laptop, walk to the window, and gaze at the moon. Somewhere, far away, my daughter is teaching her own daughter about boundaries, about love that breathes instead of suffocates. The cycle broke quietly, like dawn breaking after a long storm. The camera pans upward to the night sky. The sound of pages turning. A hand, aged yet steady, folds a letter. The paper crackles softly. Letters outlive us, because truth doesn't expire. Words travel farther than footsteps ever could. A classroom in Buenos Aires. Teenagers read an excerpt projected on the wall. The day I stopped being needed was the day I started being alive. Applause, silence, reflection. I never planned to start a revolution. I only wanted to rest. 20 years later, Lake Zurich, morning, mist curls over the water. Birds skim the surface. A plaque near a stone bench reads, In memory of Julita Johnson. 1953 to 2030. Freedom is not rebellion. It's remembering who you are. A young woman places white lilies beside it. She looks familiar. Rebecca's daughter, Emma, now in her 30s. She carries a small notebook, its cover engraved, Casa Libre Journal. She opens it and begins to read aloud. Dear Grandma, I never met the woman you were before Switzerland, but I grew up in the world you built after. You taught my mother that love without boundaries is charity, disguised as guilt. You taught me that peace isn't inherited, it's chosen. Daily. I want you to know what your letter became. The global curriculum montage various locations. New Delhi, a teacher writes freedom after 70 on a chalkboard. Today, class, we're discussing emotional economics. Toronto, a support group for caregivers recites the affirmation, I am not too late to love myself. Tokyo, elderly women hold tablets during a Casa Libre online workshop. Istanbul, billboards quote Ulit, obedience is not gratitude. Your letter became a curriculum, translated into 40 languages, taught in social work programs and nursing schools. Governments used your research to write laws protecting parents from financial coercion. Cut to a UN session. A delegate raises her voice. We call this initiative the Ulita Protocol, the first international framework addressing emotional exploitation of elders. Applause echoes across the chamber. Rebecca's legacy. OFFICE Day. Now in her 70s, Rebecca leads a nonprofit called Second Chances Foundation. Photos of mothers and daughters filled the walls. She speaks to a group of young volunteers. Once, I thought boundaries were cruelty, she says. Now I teach them as love's highest form. After the session, she sits by her window, staring at a photograph. Her mother, smiling by Lake Zurich. She whispers, "You were right." The Discovery COT Tage in Switzerland flashback. Ulita, older but luminous, sits at her desk. The light is golden. She's finishing a letter, the final message. If you are reading this, I am gone. Do not mourn me. Continue me. For centuries, women were taught to disappear quietly. I want you to vanish loudly, into art, into peace, into self-respect. You owe nobody your endurance. You owe yourself your presence. If the world ever doubts your worth, show them this letter, and live louder. She folds it, seals it, and writes on the envelope, for every daughter who will one day be a mother. The letter goes public. Hymns of modern, human stories present day. The letter is framed under soft light. Tourists gather around, reading in reverent silence. A small sign reads, "The Ulita Letter, donated by the Johnson family, 2032. Emma stands nearby as a group of school children read. A boy whispers, "She sounds like my grandma." Emma smiles. That's the point. The interview with History Docio Minty RY Studio. Present day. Emma sits for an interview for a 20-year retrospective film. The woman who refused to disappear. Interviewer, what do you think made your grandmother's story so universal? Emma, because every generation inherits silence until someone decides to speak. Interviewer, did her disappearance break your family? Emma, yes, but it also rebuilt us. Sometimes you have to lose the roof to see the stars. Casa Libre's New York City Day. The Casa Libre Global Center opens a modern building with glass walls and gardens on every floor. The dedication ceremony draws global leaders, artists, and journalists. Emma steps to the podium. My grandmother believed peace could be taught. Today, Casa Libre offers free legal aid, housing, and therapy for abandoned or exploited elders. This building is not just a center, it's an inheritance of courage. The ribbon is cut. Applause roars. Rebecca's final visit. Lake Zurich evening. Rebecca, frail but peaceful, sits on the same bench with Emma. They watch the water glisten. Your grandmother was extraordinary, Rebecca says, but she wasn't a saint. She was just tired and brave enough to stop pretending otherwise. Emma nods. That's what makes her real. Rebecca sighs. When I asked her to die, I thought I was pushing her away. I didn't know I was pushing her toward the world. They laugh quietly, the sound carrying across the lake. The letter's final journey. Moantage. A mother in Nairobi prints the Ulita letter and tapes it above her bed. A retired teacher in Lima translates it into Quechua. A granddaughter. In soul tattoos, the line "Freedom is remembering who you are" on her wrist. A father in Berlin reads it aloud to his teenage daughter. Her words became everyone's inheritance, not just women's, because healing is not gendered, it's human. The last broadcast. A journalist asks, if you could send one message to the future, what would it be? Ulita smiles softly. Tell them that love survived, but this time, it learned to rest. The audience goes still. And that was her final sentence. The punctuation on a lifetime of exhaustion turned into purpose. Library shelves lined with freedom after 7. Worn from used. University students debating the economics of emotional labor. A mother closing her wallet but opening her heart. A daughter hugging her mother without expectation. She asked to disappear. Instead, she became everywhere. Eichstätt Lake, Zurich, sunset. Emma sits alone now. She opens her notebook and adds the final entry. Dear Grandma, the world finally caught up to your peace. The daughters you never met are freer because of you. The mothers you never held are resting tonight. You said your story ended with peace, but peace doesn't end. It multiplies. She closes the notebook, stands, and releases a paper lantern over the lake. The light drifts higher, reflected in her eyes. They asked for my death. I gave them my life, and life, it seems, keeps giving back.